We're the Young Indie Chroniclers podcast, and we're producing a new feature-length documentary, George Lucas, The Lost Golden Age.
George Lucas was going to do this Lawrence of Arabia scale epic on a 16-millimeter budget.
You got a chance to have the same adventure making the show as what Indy was doing.
His stuff is really quite political.
You didn't think I was going to run, did you?
I learned that when George says he wants to ultimately change or fix something, that he was going to do it.
We built a Kickstarter campaign to support the film. Late pledges are available now at Kickstarter.com.
Hello there. Welcome to Force Ghost Conversations. This podcast is your home for cozy deep dives into all things Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent properties. This is your host, Anthony King, and each week I will be joined by fans, creators, and believers in the principles from the galaxy far, far away to discuss the thematical elements from our favorite Lucasfilm properties. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations, your cozy home for deep dive discussions into all things Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent properties. And we have a great episode for you here today. In our main topic discussion, we're going to be sharing our feelings, thoughts, opinions, and memories of the character of Maul in anticipation for the upcoming series Maul, Shadow Lord. And of course, we're joined by the incredible Jen Sopchockchai Bankard from the Long Take Review podcast, who is a aforementioned Maul animated fanatic. So real pleasure to have her on the show, of course, especially as this is released on Oscar Sunday, and we talk a little bit about that in the episode. So a lot to look forward to in our kind of preview episode, if you will, for that upcoming animated series. Before we get into that, though, quick Cloud City Gossip segment here, because there wasn't a whole lot of news in the Star Wars Lucasfilm adjacent galaxy this past week, but we do have a little bit to touch upon, so we will certainly get to that. And first off, I did want to acknowledge that there was like a little, I think it was in Empire Magazine, don't quote me on that, but there was some kind of preview article for The Mandalorian and Grogu that has quotes and gives some details about the film. I don't want to cover that really, just because it could be considered spoiler in nature, and partially because I don't want to be spoiled myself. I don't want to spoil you all, so that's where I'm leaving it at that. Just to know it exists, you can go hunt it down, and I'm sure a lot of like the trades and just online social media accounts have already been talking about the points of that story and have been using it for their content creation and whatnot over the last couple of days here. Anywho, onto the main, not the main topic, but the main story that I wanted to share for Cloud City Gossip was that we got a cover for the second novel in the Star Wars Reign of the Empire series. This is called Edge of the Abyss now, and it's written by Rebecca Roanhorse. And it's got a great cover. It's going to be like set 1 year before the events of season 1 of Andor, which is going to be great. And you're definitely going to get a lot of cool characters. It looks like Anton Krieger's on the cover, definitely Luthen, Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and Saw Gerrera is front and center in this thing. So it looks great. I've heard wonderful things about the first novel, Mask of Fear, and also we got a release date, and that is going to come out on September 15th of 2026. So not too far away if you want to reread or read for the first time the first novel and get hyped up for that. Or maybe you want to do a rewatch of Andor, because that's also timely as well. So that is all of the news I have for this week's episode, folks. On the other side of this short break, we'll be back with Jen talking all about Maul. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations. I don't know about you, but I have heard about this little TV show that's coming up in April, just a few weeks away, called Maul, Shadow Lord. It looks like it'll be awesome, and we're here to chat about the character Maul, our feelings, our thoughts, our predictions heading into the new show. And of course, we have a guest here, a self-proclaimed Maul animated fan herself. We have Jen Sopchockchai Bankard from the Long Take Review back on the show. Jen, how are you doing? And welcome back to the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me back. I'm so excited to be here and to be talking about Maul in anticipation of this series. He's one of to me, he's over time. If we think about his totality of his career as a Star Wars character, I feel like he is definitely ranked high in terms of one of the most interesting characters or complicated characters in Star Wars canon.
Yes, and he gets more complicated with every proceeding like
Yes.
installment into his lore. It's like, wow, I think I have this guy figured out, and then I don't. I really don't. So from humble origins, perhaps getting cut in half, to all the way to us maybe tearing up for him at his passing, right? With the Kenobi duel, right? Like that's an emotional sequence there. So Jen, let's go back to 1999. You are maybe introduced to the character, I think, via the trailer, perhaps, right? Then you at least get the images. I think a couple of the trailers later, he speaks like dialogue that isn't even in the movie anymore. What did you think of your first visions of Maul? Like when you first saw those images and then seeing the movie, what was going through your mind?
I remember thinking he looked very, no pun intended, menacing and like really, really cool and kind of mysterious. I was like, what is the deal with this guy? And actually, like, he seemed at the time dangerous, because I definitely remember, because I had the Phantom Menace poster that I think I told this anecdote when I was on to talk about the prequel trilogy at some point in the past. But I had the Phantom Menace poster that kind of traveled with me from dorm room to dorm room.
Yeah.
And my parents were like, what is this devil worship that's happening on your wall? Like, what is, like, we don't like this. Like, we're concerned. So they definitely saw him as like evoking something bad, and particularly like something bad from like religion, right? in a way that they had not really. If I just been like, oh, that's just from Star Wars, they've been like, oh, okay. But I think that not knowing what it was, and then seeing it initially, the imagery is very strong.
Yeah, your parents are like, Jen goes off to college and she's become a devil worshiper now. What have we done?
I mean, it was the late 80s, early. I mean, like I grew up in the late 80s and early 90s, and so I was really
era.
Yes, exactly. Like my brother tried to play D&D when he was a kid, and they were like, nope. So yeah, I definitely came up from that sort of where everyone was very skittish about anything that was like that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, for sure, the image of the character alone is exactly reminiscent of what, like, if you were to conjure up an image of the devil, it would arguably be Maul, right? It's not too much of a difference between the two of them. They call it a Zabrak, call it the devil, right? It is the embodiment of evil, and what a way to reignite the Star Wars flame again than with arguably the most evil looking dude in the history of cinema. It's incredible character design, right? Like that is at the forefront of all this, and of course having the dual bladed lightsaber, and the Duel of the Fates 2 music with surrounding all that too. Like what a way to bring the character to life. Like that's so cool and awesome. And I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts, because just, you were a bit older than I was during the time of the Phantom Menace, and I like what you said about, um, he was menacing. Now, I'm curious, did you, with like the secrecy surrounding Episode 1, did you, and the title is released, The Phantom Menace, did you ever think maybe in your speculation that he was the Phantom Menace?
Yeah, I think that's what I assumed.
Okay.
And then maybe coming out of the movie was like, oh, was that true? Like, who was the like? Who was the, did I get that wrong? So yeah, I think I remember at the time the marketing definitely pushing us in that direction.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, full spoiler for Phantom Menace, everybody. He gets cut in half by Kenobi. He has maybe, one or two lines at most in the movie. So were you perhaps a little, maybe disappointed, I guess, maybe it could be the better phrase, with all the anticipation heading into the movie, only to have him, have a very minimal part, and then to be struck down? Was it just a case of maybe style over substance and all that, and it maybe deflated the story a bit for him? But were you, maybe, I guess the question is, were you disappointed perhaps with Maul after all the build up and he's in the posters and he's so featured in the marketing, to then have the character be kind of tossed aside down a endless shaft, basically?
Right. I mean, I definitely remember being surprised. I think at the time I was probably so mad about what he had done to Qui-Gon that I was just like, forget this guy. Like, get him out of here. Good riddance. But yeah, I do remember being kind of surprised because it's the start of a new trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
So the assumption is that we're going to be with all of the characters that are introduced for some time, right? And that ended up being not the case in a big way. So yeah, I remember being like, oh, slice it. And I remember the time being like, sliced in half. Yeah, there's no way we're coming back from that. And yet.
And yet, yeah, that's a great transition there because Clone Wars comes, well, his return is roughly, I think, 2010, 2011, somewhere in that range, where we get our first glimpses that, hey, this guy could be coming back. And if I remember, George said to Dave one day, hey, Maul's back. And that's kind of the iteration of how it all came together there, which is totally George, in my opinion. But, where were you in like that early, 2010s range? Like, were you watching Clone Wars on a week-to-week basis? How did you find out that Maul comes back?
Yeah, so I think the short answer to your question is very yes. Greg Cass, friend of the show, and I in grad school, we made it out to the theater for the Clone Wars movie. And so I was in it from the beginning. And I do remember, and at the time, I'm like, this was really a cost ineffective approach to this. But I actually bought every single episode of those first few seasons of Clone Wars on Apple. Like I paid and downloaded them because I think at the time there was kind of no other way for me to watch them. I don't know. Yeah, in retrospect, I would love to know how I came to that decision. I don't remember, but yeah. So I was trying to keep up with it as best as I could, downloading the episodes one at a time every week as they popped up.
Wow.
I remember refreshing my like Apple app or whatever the at the time it would have been like what the iTunes
It would have
store?
been iTunes, yeah.
Yeah. I was about to say Apple TV. I'm like, no, that was not around then. But yeah, it's the refreshing, like closing and opening the iTunes store app on my computer to be like, is it here? Is it here?
That's awesome because like I bet you still have them, right? Are they still connected to your Apple ID account? So if you pull up, if Disney Plus goes down, Jen can still watch Clone Wars.
Well, if Disney Plus goes down and Apple goes down, then I'm in trouble. Right.
Yes,
like
yes.
it's still
So
not,
it's
it's not the same as physical media. That would have been the pro move.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. It's never too late, Jen. You can still get
That's
on
true.
board with the train. Those Blu-rays still exist out there. So you were watching pretty regularly there. I love it. You actually saw the movie in the theaters. Kudos to you on that one. That's awesome. That'll be for a story later day out for both of you. I can't wait to hear what that actually entailed. So Maul comes back in the Clone Wars, and he has this arguably triumphant return, right? He kicks butt for a lot of the first couple of episodes once he finally is not spider walking Maul. So like, what did you think of his arc in that series?
So yeah, to start with, he's pretty feral. It's very unsettling when Savage first finds him and he's just like in this like trash heap with spider legs, and it's just like, what is happening right now? But I do remember, and I have to confess, I did recently rewatch that 3-episode sequence when the Shadow Lord trailer dropped. I was like, oh, I should go back and watch the Clone Wars Maul arc when he came back, and so it is relatively fresh in my memory. And what's really interesting is they really lean into this idea of him as a crime lord. There's even a line, which I didn't remember until I rewatched it. There's a line where instead of Sith Lord, Obi-Wan says, Maul says, we will be lords, crime lords. And it's like, and then there's a whole back and forth between Obi-Wan and Yoda, I think, where they're sort of like, we've been so distracted by the Clone Wars that like crime syndicates have been allowed to flourish, and it's not good. So there is like actually a lot of setup for what is to come later in the Clone Wars and the post-credits scene in Solo and like all the comic books. So like it's a long con when you go back, and I didn't remember it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably have that with different eyes too at this point. I think that was great of you to go back and revisit that, like those canonical texts for this, if you will. I think it was brilliant. Because,
Disney Plus has not. Sorry, Disney Plus has not yet. I have to complain about this formally. Ooh. Disney Plus hasn't put together a curated menu collection of all the episodes like before this Ahsoka series premiered, they had a nice like, here are all the Ahsoka episodes or
The
things that
essentials,
Ahsoka's
right?
in. Yeah, and I've been looking for that for Maul, and it hasn't come up yet. So
It's a shame. I mean, you got to think there's at least those three, right? And then the season 7, right? That Siege of
well, there's
Mandalore
the whole
arc.
Death Watch and the yeah. There's a lot. There's actually a lot.
And then of course Solo will be in there, and then Rebels will have quite a few in season
Yeah.
3. And that's where the journey of the character goes beyond. At least we'll come back to Clone Wars in a second here. Just going through the timeline history of our timeline, right? As people engaging with this content, right? Maul does have some brief appearances in the Ahsoka novel, where they kind of hint at the Siege of Mandalore arc there, never knowing that we might actually get it one day. And then the next time we see him is in season 3 of Star Wars Rebels, where Thrawn and Maul is, well, he's in season 2. He's at the season finale. He's a little menace in that one as well on Malachor, I believe. And so he takes on kind of Ezra as a pseudo apprentice kind of deal, and figures out that Kenobi's still alive and where he's at, and then has that crazy awesome duel with him in that Twin Sons episode that almost concludes season 3 of that amazing series. Jen, take us through what was life like, I think, in 2016 for you watching that Twin Sons episode for the first time. Was it appointment viewing? Were you pulling up Disney XD? Were you downloading it on iTunes the next day? What were you doing with that one?
Oh my gosh. 2000 Disney XD. Yeah, no. So wait, it would have been. This is pre Disney Plus, right?
Yes, pre Disney Plus by a couple of years.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, how would I have? Yeah, I think I was still using iTunes at that point.
Oh wow. Didn't splurge for the
I
cable
must have
yet.
been. Yeah, no. So I've been a cord cutter for a really long time. So it's like,
Nice.
yeah, what's cable? Yeah, and 2016 would have been the year my daughter was born too. So it was just a delirious time. That would have made that one episode all the more surreal, I think. But I do remember, that the duel between the two of them. A lot of people complained at the time. I remember that it was too short or too quick.
Yeah.
And I remember that it was just I didn't understand that take, because I was just like, but it's so poetic and it's so samurai and seems so fitting that this is how the story of the two of them would end. So I remember really being blown away by it and being like, whoa, they did it.
Yeah, I think they nailed it too. This, I think people have to remember that they are 30 years beyond where they were in the Phantom Menace. Both these characters, so they're older. We'll see Kenobi almost a year later, fighting Vader, and to kind of be in line with the story that we see in A New Hope, right? He's not just doing acrobats around Vader on the Death Star when they're fighting in that duel. So they got to keep it a little realistic compared to where the timeline is at this point. And these are two aged warriors, and I love like the Rebels recon show that they did after each episode back then was fantastic. And in that particular one, after the Twin Sons episode, I remember them being very honest about the concept of like, hey, we're not going. I know everyone wants Duel of the Fates Part 2, but realistically, what would happen is these two aged warriors are like samurai at this point in their time, and whoever strikes first, whoever like makes the first move is usually the one that loses, because then they're able to parry it and do all that. And the fact that he actually does the same move that he's trying to, that he takes out Qui-Gon with in the Phantom Menace is used again against Kenobi in this, and he's able to block it because he remembers that. I'm just like, that's so poetically brilliant. The fact that Maul wasn't able to move beyond that moment, and that Kenobi was able to learn and recognize that, showcases the Sith and the Jedi mentality in practicality. It's so awesome that they were able to distill that in just maybe 10 seconds of no dialogue, no language, nothing, and it's so well done. And the fact that you can just see like subtle smoke rising from him where Kenobi cuts him, I'm like, oh man, that's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's Kurosawa in Star Wars all over again. Let's do it.
And even just like the backdrop, I remember, because it's like, if I remember correctly, it's like the shot it's like a 2-shot of them facing each other, but there's just like really beautiful landscape and behind them, and I just remember it being thinking it was so well composed in terms of
Yeah,
just as like a
yeah.
frame.
Yeah, I agree entirely. It's I think it's my favorite episode of Rebels. Unfortunately, without most of the Rebels crew, right? But that's just when you have both of these characters that are titans, and when you're fans of the prequels and you've been kind of waiting for this moment, like once they kind of drop that, hey, Kenobi's gonna maybe be coming in this thing, and Maul's a part of this, we might see that final showdown between the two of them, and we finally get it. Like it lived up to the hype and the expectation, and then of course you get a little bit of Luke at the end of it. It's just a chef's kiss episode. It's an insular thing. It exists on its own. It's beautiful. It should be shown in cinemas, if you ask me. It rocks. Go watch Twin Sons if you haven't, everybody. I know we just fully spoiled it for you, but it's beautiful. You will not regret spending about 20 minutes of your life watching that thing, and it flows fast. I remember at the time it came out, I think I watched it like twice a day for the week that it was
Hmm.
released. Thank you, on-demand services that no longer exist. And
Yeah, and
it was a delight.
it's actually, like, if you think about it, a really good contrast to those earlier episodes of the Clone Wars that we were just talking about, where Maul
Yeah.
reappears. Because going back and watching those, the other thing I didn't remember is that the Maul and Savage actually like really get the upper hand over Kenobi, and to the point where I think Hondo is like, you let them best you, like he's like
Mhm.
making fun
Yeah.
of him.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and it is serious because I think Kenobi brings in a Padawan with him who then dies. So it's like the stakes are pretty high, and Maul kind of like gets one over Obi-Wan Kenobi. So it's interesting to think about that, and then how different the story is by the time we get to Twin Sons.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he's it's the bane of his existence is Kenobi for all these years, right? And
Hmm.
I was as you were saying that, I was also reminded of the scream that Sam Witwer does as the voice,
Oh
the
yes.
Kenobi. Of course, I won't do it on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
podcast to break everyone's ears, but
yeah.
that is a true highlight of that episode as well, as him just losing it in the desert, and then at the end there is Kenobi when we need him most, right? As And the fact that he uses Ezra to draw him out, right? He's like, hey, there's
Yeah.
a kid in need. He just can't let him. That's the Jedi. We'll use the Jedi code against them, right? Kind of that Inquisitor mindset that we'll see in the Kenobi, that we actually see in the Kenobi show, right? Like draw him out, make him
Right.
come out.
Exploit their weakness, which is being
Exactly.
kind and caring.
Kindness. That's right. Kindness can be a weakness, and we will exploit it. Exactly right. Now, moving on to his next appearance, which will be kind of revisiting that crime syndicate aspect of it, that I think we'll kind of get more hints at in the series upcoming, is his brief appearance, albeit awesome appearance, in Solo: A Star Wars Story. Jen, 2018, you're in May of 2018, you're in the cinema watching this. Did you ever anticipate that you'd see Maul again in live action, or did you like? Were you blown away when you saw it appear in theaters?
It was awesome. I remember I was basically the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV meme. That was me. And I remember I went with a few friends that were big Star Wars nerds, from that are colleagues of mine at work, and we went to, because like we kind of lived all over Southern California, like around
Mhm.
in the greater LA area. So
Yeah,
Anaheim had
you're about
a
2 hours
downtown.
from each other.
Yeah, downtown. Yeah, I know it's a real problem. Downtown Disney at the time, it's no longer there, had a movie theater, and so that was actually
Really?
the most central location for all of us. Yeah, it's I'm trying the Ear- there was an Earl of Sandwich, and there was like an
Yeah,
AMC, and
really?
then they moved everything around. I can't for the life of me now remember what's there now because it's
Wow.
been a while, but um and I'm just not remembering. But yeah, I think actually they're turning it into a parking garage. Don't quote me on that. But
Of course
yeah,
they would.
it's some kind of renovation was happening, and they were like, we don't need this movie theater here anymore, which I was devastated by.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, that was our central, the closest thing to meeting in the middle for all of us. And I
Mm.
remember we walked out being like, what just happened? Like that that was crazy. So and then I remember having to then explain it to everyone else I knew who saw the movie, and they were like, what was with the thing at the end, like who was that, and like, well, ranging from who was that
Mm-hmm.
So I had to really roll up my sleeves to answer. And then, who was that ranging to? Was that really Darth Maul? I thought he was dead. So yeah, it was a fun time to be like a a deep Star Wars fan.
Yeah, that was exactly my response to it. I was blown away, and I think you're Leo pointing at the screen. I'm looking around at everybody, being like, "Is anyone geeking out as much as I am?"
Right.
Kind of deal, because, um, I think was we are so ingrained into the canon of this thing, right? We're reading the books, reading the comics. You're downloading episodes after they appear on iTunes, right? Like, you're fans of the expanded story here, and unfortunately, to this day, there is still so many people who refuse to like acknowledge or accept or even engage with any of that part of Star Wars. There's so many people that are, oh, it's animation. I'm not. I know. I can't do that. They have some stigma against it, and it's sad because there's so many great characters, stories, and arcs that flush out the story of Star Wars in such a beautiful way. And the Maul return is one of those. And the thing that I walked out of Solo feeling so refreshed and reinvigorated for is the fact that people can't just deny that those are stories that are important and they aren't canon, and they, like, I can disregard them. I was like, no, you can't, because Maul comes back. Like, we see Maul cut in half, and then you're like, well, how does he come back? Clone Wars tells you that answer. Oh, and then, oh, now he's back in this. What's the next story? What's Solo 2 like, right? Because it opens the door, because Kira goes off to Dathomir to be with Maul and Crimson Dawn and the remnants of it after that point. And we haven't gotten that story yet. We know where kind of Kira ends up later on, and we obviously know Maul's endpoint. But there's still a lot of years of, like 5-7 years in between there that we don't know what the deal with these characters are. And that was, I think, the invigorating thing for me, that as time has gone on, it's been quite a journey with that notion of like expanded things of like what counts and what doesn't count. Because now we're in the age of streaming, and people are like, I don't want homework anymore. I don't want to watch TV shows that then blend into the movies, and vice versa. And I'm like, what flipped in the world in the last 5 years that people were like loving having to do homework going into Avengers Endgame, and now they're like, I don't want my Marvel TV shows to impact the movies because I don't want to have to be forced to watch She-Hulk.
Yep.
What? Just enjoy it. Don't watch it if you don't want to, but like, we should be thrilled that there is a connected shared universe, and that there's cameos and stories matter. Doesn't matter the medium or way it's being told, or if it's in a 20-minute TV episode or animated or whatnot. Like, how did this happen? How did we get here, Jen?
I mean, it is really interesting to think about Star Wars kind of being a development phase, like behind Marvel, and because it seemed like when Marvel was peaking, that Star Wars was like, hey, we got to start doing that.
Yeah.
Right. And you could see, and I think this is actually you could argue this is the beginning of them being like, hey, wait a minute, maybe we can start doing kind of like this interconnected, like transmedia kind of sprawling story. And then I think just as they're kind of ramping up to start doing that, right, they're like announcing that there's going to be an Avengers style Dave Filoni movie, right, that has Ahsoka and Thrawn and everybody and Mando and everyone's coming together, right? Just as they're announcing that, then like Marvel gets into its slump, and I wonder if part of it was like, oh, maybe we don't want that. Maybe, like, you know what I mean? Like, I wonder how much that Lucasfilm and Disney sort of decided to steer away from that as though I don't know. Like, it'll be interesting to see, especially with Mandalorian and Grogu. I feel like that's going to be a big litmus test for like, are they still on track for doing kind of like a Endgame but make it Star Wars sort of situation, or have we abandoned that because we saw kind of what happened with Marvel?
Yeah, Mandalorian Grogu will be the biggest test of this. It was kind of treading the waters with the Marvels, where two of the main characters were from Marvel television shows. Unfortunately, that didn't have the highest box office, but I think there are a lot of reasons for that, per se, not just because there were two, but I know a lot of people use that as their excuse, even though they did a great job explaining who they are and what they are in the movie if they had actually seen it. So it'll be the biggest test here will be because Disney Plus launches in 2019 with the Mandalorian. 2 episodes that first week there, so they went out guns blazing, everything behind this bounty hunter creature and his baby Yoda sidekick, and now we're full steam back into cinemas. Right, we haven't had a Star Wars film since 2019, and now they're throwing all their cards on the table. Like, hey, let's give it $150 million budget, IMAX screens, and still in the volume, and let's see if this plays out in the way that we intended it to. And I have high hopes that it'll be successful, and it's going to have its haters, sadly, but it'll be the real litmus test. So maybe with this, there could be other things in the future. Maybe again, maybe you said you saw Clone Wars, maybe another animated Star Wars could be brought to the cinema. Like maybe with this new regime, Dave Filoni and Lin Brennan are now heads of Lucasfilm. We also are having a new Disney CEO and Josh D'Amaro. So there's a lot of, with regime change comes new ideas and fresh principle ideas, and frankly, this is the third Disney CEO in the last 5 years, so kind of rehashing of the Iger again, but maybe all that, but we'll see what happens, and I'm optimistic for it, of course, but very interesting from the business side of things too when you add it all together there.
Yeah, so I think if Mandalorian Grogu has, because I feel like the main film is going to be mostly a standalone adventure, but I would keep an eye out for if there is a Maul showing up at the end of Solo style post credit scene, where maybe it's like a character from Ahsoka, or like I don't some
You have to
right,
imagine
like you're
it's Thrawn,
saying,
right?
right, like that there's some hint of like, oh, all this stuff is going to connect later, or it's going to be this is going to come back around. Then I think that's the signal that it's like game on, right?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and I don't think that we're in danger of Maul himself showing up in any of this stuff, but
Yeah.
I say that like, knowing like I'm gonna regret that later potentially, but I do think that because there's a clear connection between sort of the Ahsoka verse in terms of as it relates to Mandalorian and Grogu, and sort of the New Republic timeline, like all that stuff, like because there's a clear connection in the Ahsoka series to Dathomir and
Yeah.
like weird witches and Dathomir and like all that stuff. There is a little bit of a runway or
The
an
DNA of
offshoot
Maul is there.
for Maul to kind of at least be like invoked.
Yeah,
For
I like what
or
you're
we
dishing
could
there.
Force Ghost. Can we do like a post? This is really galaxy brain, but a post credits scene at the end of Mandalorian Grogu that has Force Ghost Maul somehow. I don't think
Well,
that's gonna happen. But
I don't know if that's the right place for it per se, but as you're speaking this out loud here, right? We did have an amazing scene in the Ahsoka series that was the flashbacks to the Clone Wars,
Mhm.
and there, with that possibility of an Ahsoka season 2 around the corner, right? There are rumors of Anakin and Obi-Wan being in that series again. Could we potentially see? And heck, the Siege of Mandalore even is in the Ahsoka series.
True.
And she's like, "Oh, Anakin's, I wasn't here for this." Maybe we do get a flashback of the Maul duel in live action with a younger Ahsoka in that sense. So the character could still be on the table again, especially with Dave being involved more and more. This is, he's going to be more precious perhaps to the characters that he forged, and he feels, I think, a responsibility to Maul after bringing him back and then killing him and then fleshing out more of the story, which is obviously where we're going with Maul Shadow Lord, which I think is a story that people have been clamoring for quite some time, and it comes out of the ashes of season 7 of the Clone Wars. So Jen, where is Maul at the start of Shadow Lord as far as we know coming out of season 7?
Well, from what I remember when I looked this up a while when the trailer came out, he's I'm gonna get this wrong. It's a few years after the end of Clone Wars, the final season, right?
Yeah,
The Siege of
I think
Mandalore.
so.
So it's
Yep.
like I don't remember the exact number. It's like let's say 5 years or something like that. And so he is sort of, once again, this is one of his defining features, sort of like picking up the pieces and trying to reinvent himself, right? That's I think every time we meet Maul,
Yep.
he is trying to kind of reforge. In some cases, literally, he's got new legs, but like he's trying to reforge and reinvent himself and survive. and adapt, right? That's I think the internet likes to call him the cockroach of Star Wars, right? You can't you can't, no matter how many times you step on him, he still comes back, right?
Right. That's right.
So yeah, I think it's the based on the trailer, the Shadow Lord series seems really exciting because it kind of like implied that we're going to get all of the things that we have come to love about Maul, right? They made there was a needle drop of Duel of the Fates, right? And then he's slicing people in half in the sort of in the way that he was sliced in half at the end of Phantom Menace. So like there's a lot of referential stuff in that trailer to be like, no, we got you. We got you, Maul fans. But then it has this kind of like neo-noir sort of crime drama, police procedural detective sort of thing going on in it that to me is like really intriguing and could make it like a really good series on its own, regardless of how it kind of connects to the rest of canon. So
yeah, I think if I recall, there's Inquisitors too. So like, is Maul going to be hunted for his Force abilities? Like, does the Empire
and
know
Marak
that he's
from
around?
Ahsoka.
Marak, of course. Yep, another Ahsoka connection there. So it's all over the place, frankly, in terms of the connective tissue here. So yeah, what's on the table here is a lot. And we're gonna get to theoretically, we could get up all the way up to the point of where we're at in Solo, where we see. So basically, they hinted at it in season 7 with like a little bit of Dryden Voss and some other crime lords, but we don't really know what if at all Crimson Dawn is yet at that point. So maybe this is like maybe Maul Shadow Lord might not be the most apt title. Maybe the Rise of Crimson Dawn might be the better title for this thing here. So I guess for the first season of this show, Jen, what are you most looking forward to? What are you excited about? What from the trailers drawing you in? What's going to make you like turn? I mean, you're turning in the first week of April when it comes out already, but what's going to make you most excited to hit play on that opening day?
So part of it is I always love Mala. To me, has always had his best when he is morally ambiguous and leaning towards anti-hero more than villain. And when he's just charismatic enough and just sympathetic enough that you're like, maybe no, don't listen to him. He's the bad guy, right? Like, snap out of it. The thing I like to joke about is that in the Siege of Mandalore scene with him and Ahsoka, there's like 30 seconds where I'm like, maybe she should just hear him out. Just hear him out. And then I'm like, no, what are you talking about?
Things, right? He just doesn't do it in the right way.
Right. But I think the thing I'm most excited about is two things: like what is old and what is new. I think that's kind of how I'm thinking about the show, is like seeing Maul again and in this kind of like morally ambiguous, or kind of is he a villain, is he an anti-hero, what's going on with him, to me is like that's why I like Maul. And in particular with the light side like seemingly apprentice that he wants to recruit, right? The younger character whose name escapes me at the moment. I did have it at my fingertips when the trailer dropped, and now it's gone. But the idea that, to me, another defining feature of Maul is that he's just constantly been trying to fill the void that Savage left. After Savage died, he's just been always like just looking for a buddy. And everyone keeps rejecting him. Like Ahsoka's like, get out of my face. Ezra eventually, like he almost gets Ezra, but then eventually he loses him as an apprentice, and so he's just always really desperate to have like a partner. And so I'm really interested to see how that works out with this particular character, because we have to somehow get from him being like a Shakespearean "let me try to seduce you" to the dark side with Ahsoka. We have to get like, and correct me if I'm getting my timeline mixed up, because I'm usually notoriously bad at doing it. I'm no Greg. I'm sorry. I'm no Ion Cannon. But we have to get from that to him being like a little bit of a softy, doddering, seemingly benign, but then really is scheming. But he does have a more tender-hearted approach to Ezra. And so thinking about what has to happen to get him from that one point to the other, and I feel like I have my gut tells me that this character is going to have a lot to do that. Like by the end of this series, we will have a clear explanation for why Maul in Rebels is the way that he is, if that makes sense. Well, in terms of character development kind of thing.
Yeah, I hope for that too, right? I think that'll be an exciting journey. And what I want to caution people for is, I think people will have the mentality of, I want Maul to be chopping up people left and right all throughout the episodes, right? Very mature rated kind of deal, a la Vader at the end of Rogue One kind of scenario, right?
Hmm.
Maul has his hallway sequence set in season 7 of Clone Wars, so there's certainly fertile ground for doing that again. But I think that the show might be slower in pace than what people are expecting, and I personally am looking forward to that because I want to see all the emotions and the machinations and whatnot that this character is doing, so that we have, like you were saying, the full picture of where he goes from this character arc to where we see him end up on Malachor, and how he creates this criminal empire and then loses it at the same time, right? The rise and fall of Maul will, I
Hmm.
think, be the course of this series. And when I say series, right, this is arguably could be many seasons of this show, right? We could
True.
get like 6, 7 seasons. Of course, I
Right. So
say
is
that.
this
I
like
didn't
our
even
next?
try.
Is this our next like Bad Batch? Right, the thing that we're gonna get every year. We're gonna get another
That's the
slew of
hope,
episodes.
right? But I hope
Yeah.
we get more than 3 seasons of
Right.
this thing. I want to dive in for quite a long time with Maul, and I want to know too much about the guy. Frankly, I want to know so much about the criminal underworld. The dark times need to be explored so much more, and I think this will be the place to do it. So that's my caution to people as they are heading into a couple up. I think they're releasing 2 episodes at a time, just so that they don't overlap with Mandalorian and Grogu.
Oh, true.
Um,
Oh,
so yeah,
we always run into
yeah,
this problem in May. Like,
we do,
there's
we
too
do, and
much.
they didn't have to release it in April. Like, come on. Well, they want to end it on May 4th, so
Right. That makes
good for
sense. I
them.
get it.
But release. It's not like we didn't have anything in. Well, I guess they don't want to overlap with Daredevil, so like it's the Disney Plus problem.
Oh, right. Yes.
So
I
yeah,
hadn't thought of that.
it's a fun release
The
strategy
other thing
conundrum.
the other thing I'm really excited for. So my hope is that this is like True Detective Star Wars version or Star
Hmm.
Wars edition.
Yeah,
Um that would be really cool to me if like it's like and so the character who plays the detective who's in the trailer is Oscar nominee Wagner Mora, from The
yeah,
Secret Agent.
yeah.
If people listening haven't watched that movie, he's incredible in it, and he's so effortlessly cool and collected in the
Hmm.
way that you would want like a noir hard boiled detective to be. And so I would just love if that character gets to kind of uncover what Maul is up to and we kind of can see it from both sides. I think that would be really cool.
I think so too, and I'm glad that you brought up Wagner Mora because that is one of the things that I am most looking forward to this thing too. Having just seen The Secret Agent this past week, he was definitely the standout. I mean, he's the lead in it, but what a great performance in that, for almost 2 hours and like 30 minutes of just him on screen. I can't spoil it for people, but he does some interesting things in the movie. Let me just say that, and that's where I'll leave it at that. But Jen, that's a great segue to my last question for you. It has nothing to do with Maul, but I know when we're releasing this episode, it is Oscar Sunday, and for your general podcasting duties, you are on the Long Take Review. You do a great analysis and examination of the Oscar-nominated films and just the industry at large. What's your big prediction? Leave it all on the table here. What are you
Whew.
thinking is the narrative on this Oscar Sunday here as people are tuning in?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it is going to be the narrative of like the headlines the next day. I do think are going to be like, this was the year of one battle after another in Sinners. I do think that the number of Oscars they're going to win is going to be like almost even.
Okay.
That's which I think most people, if they are being more conservative about Sinners winning than that. Um, but I finally let go of the idea that people are going to be mad about Sinners not winning anything or something like that. Right? Like
Mhm,
I think
mhm.
we're
Yeah.
past that point. Um, but my big swing prediction, which I haven't actually locked in yet, I reserve the right to change it up until the morning of Sunday morning. In supporting actress, I originally, when we recorded our final predictions episode, it's almost it's like a week and a half ago now. We had to do it pretty early. I had Wunmi Misaku winning supporting actress,
Mm,
and I was kind of like, I don't know, like that. And most pundits do have her third in their rankings. They're
yeah.
like either going with Amy Madigan, Tiana Taylor, and then Wunmi Misaku. So I'm like, maybe that will be a good big swing. And then if it pans out, then I can like be like, ha ha ha, like to everybody else. And part of me doesn't know if I'm like, I think I'm hope dicting because I would really love to see her win. And that's why I'm like talking myself out of doing it as a prediction, because I think my judgment has been clouded. So, but if I stick that with that one, that's going to be my biggest swing, probably.
Mm. I like it, and I'd be all for it. She's fantastic in the movie. I just did a rewatch the other day, and I did a 180 on that movie, Jen. I hated Sinners
Oh,
in the
that's right. I
theater.
remember your letterbox review was like
I was
not
so
particularly
disappointed.
good.
I was so disappointed because I was a victim of the circumstances of people hyping it up, right? I
Oh,
felt
yeah, that
like
is hard.
when
Yes,
people were
it was.
like, there are
Mhm.
scenes in this movie that you have never seen before. And then I spent the whole movie being like, is that
Trying
the
to figure out
scene?
what that was.
Yeah. And,
Oh
and
no.
they're like, it's a horror film. It'll, I love horror. They're like, it'll blow your socks off. And I'm like, there's no part that's scaring me here. Who who told you that? And of course, each person have their own tastes and whatnot. So
Mhm.
like that could certainly impact that. But yeah, I spent the whole movie just like searching for like this holy grail that didn't exist, perhaps, or at least it didn't hit me in the way that it did other people, and I
Right.
felt deflated from the weight of the expectation. So that clouded my judgment, if you will, that throughout the entirety of that journey. So after the actors awards, I was like, okay, I'll give this another redo, just because I can change as a person, and maybe discourse has changed, and I'm not sitting there expecting for a scene that was going to come that would blow me away again. So I watched it and I was like, wow, this is really great. One of my favorites of the year. So
Ah,
I am certainly on the Sinners
aw,
train back on again.
amazing.
I think I'm on with you that it'll be one battle in Sinners, but there's a there's a chance, like I am intrigued because this is the first year, folks that are listening, that they require people to watch all the things in the
That's
category
true.
before they can vote on it. So I think we might just be in a weird territory this year of
So you think
like,
there are going to be some wild picks that no one's expecting because of that?
I honestly, I think there's a chance for that, but I think
Mhm.
that, you know, the idea was like, especially coming out of the Globes, it was that Sinners was going to be the Barbie of this year, right? A
Yeah,
movie that
that's what I
people
thought.
really enjoyed, gets its nominations here and there, and maybe wins like uh, for screenplay and then for score for Ludwig Göransson,
Mhm.
and just gets those like nominations there just because, right? Kind of like a Wicked last year, and again Barbie before then, and just there's that big blockbuster film that never really has the weight to win an award. But I think because of how the season has gone and it's gained this momentum, even though one battle is, I think, is going to win Best Picture and Best Director, there's a strong chance that because people are watching this now, I think Sinners could maybe take maybe 7 Oscars. Like it is a
Yeah.
strong chance, and like these people didn't get, not like Delroy Lindo, Winmi Masaku, right? Like they, aside from BAFTAs, they were not on the other precursor lists for this endeavor. So like there's a part of me that's thinking the narrative could really be Sinners surges and just has this amazing day. Uh Maybe Best Picture, Michael B. Jordan now is in talks to maybe be the favorite for for Best Actor.
Yeah.
Where were we 2 months ago with this, where
It's
it's just
crazy.
getting cinematic achievement, and they're like, "Well, that's the throwaway, like, that's your pat on the head. Thank you for being a good movie," kinda deal, but we're gonna give everything to one battle. So I'm personally geeking out at the fact that, like, we don't know what we're in for on Sunday because of this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm looking at some of those below the belt categories, right? Like, documentary and whatnot, that I think people just voted on title before. They just thought it was a cool title and said, "I'll go for that one." And now they have to actually watch it. So I'm like, "Well, do any of us have a
Yeah.
chance to get 100% right? I don't know."
I think yeah, so I think what I've heard pundits rationalize this as like maybe they're assuming we won't have to factor they have to watch everything now into the equation because I've heard so many people be like, well, the people are just having their assistants hit play on the portal and then going to do laundry. You know what I mean? Like, so that somehow
Sure,
they are
there's
kind of
ways
like
around it.
skirting their responsibility and not, and so it will be largely the same as it always is. But yeah, I'm really curious to see like what weird thing is going to manifest that people are going to, only in retrospect are people going to be like, oh, so once people are forced to watch all the movies, then this is the type of thing that wins. It'll be
Mhm.
really interesting to see how it pans out.
Yeah, even
I
though
think
like
especially with the shorts are going to be crazy. I think because
yes.
people will be like, "Oh, I actually watched these, so I'm going to pick this one," as opposed to just going by the vibes or the title or whatever.
Exactly.
But
A lot less of a commitment than the 2 hour, 40 minutes films that encompass the Best Picture nominees, right?
yeah,
So, like, they have those below the line ones will be really interesting and a Wild West, if you will. But Jen, thank you so much for hopping on, for talking about Maul, sharing our memories, looking ahead towards the new series. We've already did some Oscar talking here, but if the folks want to check out what other things that you're doing on the Long Take Review, where can the folks find you and what you got going on over there?
all right. Thank you, and thank you for having me. I always enjoy talking about this. Anything from Star Wars animation. I will stump for. No problem, no hesitation. And you can find me on the longtake.substack.com. That is where I both put our that's the that website houses all of the long take review episodes when we publish them, so it's a great place to go subscribe if you want to follow along with the show, which Anthony just plugged so well, so I'm not going to repeat what he said. But you'll also actually be able to find when Shadow Lord starts. I'm planning to do, we'll see how well I can keep up with it, but because you just mentioned that, reminded me of what the release schedule is. I'm like,
That's
oh,
right.
okay. But I'm planning to do weekly episode reviews of that as well. I try to, anytime there's a new Star Wars series, or there hasn't been a movie lately, but I'll do a review of Mandalorian Grogu too. So that is kind of my happy place, is writing about Star Wars on there. So and you can find me on social media at Sopchockchai, Sopchockchai, mostly on Instagram and Threads, and on Letterboxd at Qui-Gon Jen. That is Star Wars related technically, because it's a reference to Qui-Gon, so I can sneak that in there. Yeah, and I'll just say, you're making me realize Darth Maul would give a killer Oscar speech.
He would. He really would. He very much would. So yeah, I would love to see if in the theoretical Star Wars is what would be the awards in Star Wars. Oh, that's a good question
Oh, like
for
if
the
they
long
had an
take
award
review.
show, what would it
What
be
would an award
called?
show be? Yeah, for the In
Whoa,
Universe Awards show. Oh, I'll
this is
leave
kind of
it.
breaking my
I'll leave
brain.
the
All
listeners
right.
with that one. Yeah, yeah. That's your homework, guys. Listening, figure out what's the best way, and then tell us. But it's been a blast, Jen. Thank you so much for being on the show here as we look ahead towards Maul Shadow Lord. And for the folks at home, thank you so much for listening. And guess what? We have a special episode for you all next week. I don't want to tease too much for it, but stay tuned for more details on that one. And until then, may the Force be with you. Take care.